Okay, so I'm going to weed the Oracal 831 for the first time. So since I'm going to be making a sign, I'm going to make a stencil. So instead of weeding, you know, the bigger parts like we normally would if we were applying this to a board or something like that, but since we're using it as a stencil, we're actually gonna take out all the pieces in the inside so that we have a stencil. So here we go. And then I normally like to weed with a seam ripper. Also, don't mind the noise in the background. My daughter's watching Daniel Tiger. Okay, so here it goes. I do want to say that it did cut pretty smoothly, just kind of cut just like regular old vinyl. So here we go. So I'm used to making signs with regular vinyl. I normally use 631 and sometimes I use 651, and I actually really like it. So I wanted to do first impression on this stencil vinyl. So far it's weeding pretty well. So the only thing about when weeding a stencil vinyl is you have to make sure not to pull up the pieces that you want to be stuck on there. It actually feels pretty thick, kind of more plasticky than regular vinyl. So that's one immediate difference that I found. Oops. It's just slowly and carefully. I lost a polka dot. Oops. Okay, so far so good. We'll rotate it around. Okay, so I finally finished weeding it. Like I said, it was fairly okay. It was, some of the parts were kind of stuck to each other, and that might just have been my cut settings, which they were just the normal vinyl cut settings, and I think it might need a little bit tweaking. I think next time I will up the thickness, but it cut. I only messed up once, so it's not bad. Alright, and now we're going to take our transfer. Okay, this is real life, you guys. Sorry, my husband just called, so you heard my phone ringing. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to take clear transfer tape, and this is the one from Expressions Vinyl, and then I'm going to use a scraper to scrape it on. So just going to cut a piece that's long enough to cover the whole thing. Okay, so I'm going to apply it on there. So it's on there, it's hard to tell because it's clear. And now I'm going to scrape. Sometimes I like to turn it over just to help me. And I always like to trim the excess of the transfer paper off. I don't know, that's just personal preference. That way it doesn't stick to my surface. That's what I'm doing right now. It doesn't have to be perfect, just trimming the excess. Sorry guys. Filming is hard. Hope you guys know that. I'm trying. Okay, so now I've cut off all the excess. I'm going to take my scraper, scrape it real good. You want to make sure that all the little pieces are going to stick on there. And you can always do a test to see if it worked. Sorry, I'm trying to just peel corner up. And you can do a test to see if it's transferring. And then if you get, you know, little pieces that aren't wanting to cooperate, you just scrape. Scrape. So just keep doing that to all the pieces. Okay. So far it's transferring pretty good. Like I said, I feel like it's a little bit thicker than normal vinyl, so that might be one of the reasons why I'm having a hard time. But a lot of times it helps to, instead of pulling away the transfer tape away from the backing, it helps to remove the backing from the tape, if that makes sense. Oh, that's working a lot better. So that you actually might need to do that for this, for the stencil vinyl, because it's so thick that removing the backing from the vinyl is probably the way to go. Perfect. So now we have the stencil ready to be applied to our board. Okay, so now I've applied the vinyl to the board, and now I'm going to remove the transfer tape. Oops. Oh no. Okay. There we go. Wow, that's staying on there pretty good. Normally with vinyl, I feel like sometimes the vinyl starts to lift up, so immediately I think this is one of the benefits to using the stencil vinyl over regular vinyl. Okay. So that was pretty seamless. I didn't have to really hold back any pieces. So another positive about the stencil vinyl is that, because a lot of times for when I use vinyl, I usually have to use Mod Podge around the edges so that it doesn't bleed. But I heard that the 831 actually doesn't bleed, so today I'm going to try painting without the Mod Podge base and see how it works. So I'm just going to use black paint today. I'm using the Crafters acrylic, the Deco Art. But I also sometimes use the apple barrel, I think that's what it's called. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit of paint on one of these types of brushes, and I'm going to dab the paint. Oops, careful not to go on the border so that you don't get black paint on the, oh boy, black paint on the outer border. I mean, it doesn't really matter what brush you use. I've used foam brushes, regular brushes, pretty much anything that you have on hand works fine. Actually, this paint is really pretty opaque. I think I'm gonna only need one layer of paint. We'll see. I'm just dabbing it on there. And then the key to this is you lift the vinyl or the stencil when the paint is almost dry but not quite dry. So that's going to depend on, you know, the weather, the temperature in your house and all that stuff. So just keep an eye on it. Just make sure you don't let it dry completely, because you want it to be just a little bit tacky. Wow, I'm really impressed by this brand. Actually, this is the first time ever using that brand. So, the cool thing about a stencil is you don't have to worry about being neat. Alright, so it's all covered. Now I'm just gonna make sure we don't have any paint peeking through. Doesn't look like we do, so I'm just gonna use up the rest of the paint that I have on here. I'm just gonna dab, 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 especially on the corners. I'm gonna make sure that your outline is pretty prominent. Alright, so I'll be back when it is almost dry, and I'll try to remove the stencil on camera, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, so it's almost dry. So here's the big reveal. I'm going to start peeling the backing off of it. Ooh. Those are some really crisp lines. I am really impressed. Wow. No bleeding at all. I was a little nervous about bleeding, and I also was nervous that the stencil would, or the stencil material would pull up the paint, but it didn't. Wow. I am really impressed. So I'm going to finish weeding the insides, and then I will come back and give a final thought. Alright everyone, I'm back. I just finished weeding the entire piece, and I love it. It looks great. Let's see if I can zoom out. There we go. It weeded pretty easily. The only thing is that I like to use an X-Acto knife for kind of like the smaller details, like the dots and these little pieces right here. So what happened was kind of like in some areas a little bit of the paint chipped off the board, but that has nothing to do with the stencil. Overall, I am super impressed by the stencil vinyl. First of all, not having to Mod Podge saved me 20-30 minutes, because not only do you have to apply the Mod Podge, but you have to let it dry, and then you paint, and then you do the whole step. So it saved me time, and I think the reason why the stencil vinyl doesn't require the Mod Podge is because it's a little bit thicker, so it kind of has a more of a barrier. That way the paint doesn't bleed in, and then also it sticks on pretty well to the board. So Overall, I think that I will be using stencil vinyl for wood signs from now on. I didn't have any problem. I was worried that the stencil vinyl would peel up the paint. This is pretty fresh paint. I actually just painted this afternoon, so I had none of that, which was awesome, because I have found sometimes the 651 has been known to kind of lift my paint in a few spots, so that was great. So yeah, I think overall it's a great, I think either way, for sure, if you do want to use regular vinyl, I would always recommend the Mod Podge. So all you do is take a paintbrush and paint with Mod Podge around the borders, and then you go in with your paint. But for the stencil vinyl, you don't have to worry about that. And so this concludes the video. Now I'm just going to seal my sign, and I like to use this Rust-Oleum. It's just like a spray that you spray on it, and I've used it for a few signs that I've made, and it actually works really well. So make sure that you spray outside because it smells really gross. But otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!